This morning, our Pushing the Limit series meets a Canadian woman who is the first person ever to complete the Trans-Canada Trail. At more than 16,000 miles, it is the longest trail in the whole wide world, spanning hundreds of walking paths, roads, and waterways. Dianne Whelan made the journey over 6 years by foot, by bicycle, and by boat. And our Jamie Wax caught up with her to talk about what she's learned.
They say to get to know someone, you must walk a mile in their shoes. But to really know Dianne Whelan and what she's seen over the past 6 years, that trek would take more than 16,000 miles.
You journeyed to 3 oceans, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean to the Arctic Ocean.
Yeah, actually it went Atlantic, Arctic, and then Pacific.
In 2015, the 56-year-old filmmaker set out for her hardest expedition yet, traveling the entire Trans-Canada Trail alone. So long, in fact, if you were to crisscross the United States 5 times, you still wouldn't cover the distance of the Trans-Canada Trail. The solo pilgrimage is the subject of Whelan's next documentary.
There's something very fragile about being alone out on Lake Superior or deep in the woods. After a while, there's something that wakes up inside you and you suddenly feel more connected to life than you've ever been.
Do you come out of the low depths of loneliness and isolation into that moment?
I never really was lonely on this journey. I felt a strong sense of connection to the world that was around me, the web of life. I went on this journey not as to prove some sort of athletic accomplishment. In fact, by day 10, I realized, Jamie, that I hadn't even gone as far as I thought I could go in one day.
Really?
Right? So I burned my schedule, and I joke with people that that's the day I dropped the rabbit suit for the turtle shell and, surrendered to how long the journey was going to take me.
No schedule to follow allowed Whelan to travel on her own terms, taking breaks when she needed a rest or when the weather was too dangerous.
Day 50.
Through her lens, she captured the rugged pathways and the tools she needed to navigate the land, the water, and at times, the treacherous conditions. On average, she spent about 8 months on the trail each year.
Nice to meet you. Nice to be on your land.
Along the way, Whelan crossed paths with strangers who she said never failed to offer her a helping hand. And spent time in indigenous communities whose ancestral land she was traveling on.
That's where I actually found my hope, Jamie, in learning a different relationship to the earth. Instead of living on it, living with it. In a lot of indigenous communities, they think about 7 generations. Every time you're making a decision, you think about 7 generations into the future. How radical that would be if we brought that into the corporate boardroom or into government. We're telling our kids, we care.
On August 1st, Whelan's journey finally came to an end. Her family and the new friends she met traveling walked with her hand in hand as she became the first person and woman to complete the entire trail.
What did it feel like on mile 0?
I was definitely crying, and it wasn't because my journey was over. It was because of all the kindness of people. When you watch the news sometimes, you're quite certain that the whole world's full of sociopaths, and it's not. I put myself in a very vulnerable position being out there alone for as long as I was, and I met a lot of people, and not once did I not meet kindness on my journey.
Whelan's next journey, sharing the wisdom she learned on her adventures in a new book and documentary, both titled 500 Days in the Wild.
Nature is a place that we could all turn to through our isolation to find healing. I definitely found my hope in human kindness all across this land and in what connects us. We're, for all of our differences, we're all connected by this land and by the water. We are one.
For CBS Mornings, I'm Jamie Wax in New York.